Hi there. My name's Tim. I am currently working at Purdue as an intern for the Trails program. So I will be teaching you today how to make a 3D model of a fish trap on Onshape, the online um, software, which is free with an education license and with personal license. So here is our design for the fish trap. It is based on the American Samoan woven fish trap. It's a little bit different shape. The other design is round. This is obviously a cylinder with a cone, but it's the same idea. I actually have one here. So as you can see, this is a little bit easier for the 3D printing because it's just straight up and down. So this, I removed the supports from the middle. So the fish swim into here and then they can't find their way back out. They get stuck. But as you see, there's a lot of supports. It's a little bit tedious to remove supports, but here's what it looks like when it's first printed out because it prints flat like that. And then here's the bottom, which fits onto the end. Here is a previous design that I made, but this is a little bit easier for 3D printing. And it is a bit more, it saves the filament. So yeah, I'm going to show you how to design the model and then show you how to download it and then 3D print it through the software. So first, here is our design and here are the dimensions. So this is just easy for scale. You don't have to make it this big when you actually print it out if you are going to, but this is easy to keep the dimensions. It's a general size and it could probably be printed in some printers at this size. So I'm gonna make it a foot tall and 10 feet in diameter. So yeah, and then um, we are going to have rings that are going to be pretty much everything is going to be half an inch thick in most cases. So there are these rings that go throughout the whole thing. They're half an inch thick, half an inch diameter of the rings, and the bottom ring is flat. That is also half an inch thick. This top ring, the funnel where the fish swim in, is going to be half an inch thick. Here's a skeleton of it just to get more of an idea. The funnel part is going to be 7 inches above the base, as you can see here. Um, it goes 7 inches up, and then we're going to have these little fasteners to fasten the bottom, little holes. You can barely see them because it's a small model, but you need some way to attach the bottom to the actual trap. So little holes in each quarter of an inch size. This is just rough scale. This is even a rough idea. If you want to change this and make it better and change the design or try to make it a little different, totally fine. This is just to give an idea, help learn the software, help have a template to work from. So, yep, and then here's the bottom. So 10 inches in diameter again, radius of 5 inches. And then these little squares, of course, not on this model because it's smaller, but they're going to be toward, zero point 0.6 inches um, length and width, and then zero point 0.4 inches in between each one. So 1 inch separated fully. And that'll make more sense when we actually make the design. But here's what we're going to do. So when you open a new project in Onshape, this is what it looks like. Make sure that you specify that you're working in inches because we're working in inches, or whatever units you're working in, make sure that it's specified. But the first thing I'm going to do is resize these planes a little because we're going to be making a pretty big model. So we want it to not out outsize our um, data planes. And then right. And the basic idea for any 3D modeling software is that you make sketches and then you do things with those sketches. You create solid shapes from flat sketch. and we're going to use some pretty cool tools today. But to start out, we are just going to make our base of the circle. So click on the top, click sketch, um, and that's good. So this is where we want. Click top view so it zooms in there, and then make a circle. This is going to be our base, so that is going to be, so click the circle, make the sketch, and then click dimensions, and make this a diameter of 10 inches. There we go. And then we're going to make another circle and make it a diameter of 9 inches. And that makes a circle, a ring that is half an inch thick. It is going to be the base of our main shape. So that's good. Our sketch is finished. Um, oh, another thing, get accustomed to how to pan and change the view with your mouse. Um, Using the middle thing that can pan, using the right click and holding that can rotate, and then scrolling with the middle click is zoom. Or you can change the settings if you would like. So now that we have this sketch, we're going to create an actual solid from it. So come over here to extrude, which takes a sketch and makes it a solid. We want solid, new body. This creates a new part. Click on our ring and then bring it up. Um, and come over here and we're going to give it half an inch. Look at it. Looks good to me. So click check. We are done. There is our bottom ring. Not this bottom part, we're gonna make that later, and I'll show you why. But this bottom part, we're making the foundation for the actual main shape. So now we're going to create the ring for the funnel in there. And like I said before, that is 7 inches above this base part here. So we're going to create a new plane. So click on the top of our extrude here, and then click plane, entities from the face of extrude, and then that's going to tell us how far away it's going to be. So we want 7 inches away, enter, and that looks about right. So from this plane to the top of our extrude is 7 inches. Check. And now we're going to make a sketch on this plane. Sketch, click here, go to top view, and then our circle is 4 inches diameter on the outside, 3 inches diameter on the inside. So we're going to make two circles. Boom, boom, go to dimensions. This one is 4, enter. This one is 3, enter. And does that look good? Looks good to me. So we're good. Um, and these are centered. It's special that they're centered on the origin there. Um, and then we extrude again to make this a solid instead of just a drawing or a sketch. So we don't want it 1 inch, we want 0.5 inches. And that looks good to me. So we're done. Okay. Now here is a fun part. We're going to do something called a sweep, which takes a sketch shape and just makes a solid along a certain path. So let's say we have like a curve that goes in this direction, and then we have a sketch shape, which is a circle. What a sweep does is it would take that circle along the sketch path and make a bit of a tube. So we're going to do something similar. And first we have to make our path. So we're going to make a sketch along the front. Okay, go to front view. That's, yep, our plane and our sketch match up. And the important part here is that you go from the outside of the bottom ring to the inside of the top ring here. And you'll see why when we do our sweep. But you can make sure of that with dimensions. And we're just going to make a jagged line. So come here to line, go back to front view, zoom in, and we start here. Show constraints. Hopefully it might snap on there. Might not. Okay, that's fine. So we can do that with dimensions. Zoom out a little bit. So click here, make sure it's straight up and down. Give it about 12 inches. We'll fix the dimension here. And then you can angle it a little bit and then come to the middle there. And right click, escape line. Now we're going to fix the dimensions to make it what we want. So we can click our line and click certain things to define how far away they are. So click the point actually down here and then click this circle. That's 0.045. We want 0 because we want those touching. Good. So now our line is connected there. We also want to make sure it's touching on the edge. So from this line to the, come on, give it to me, this plane. There we go. We want that 5 because the radius of our thing is 5. There we go. So now we know that this point is directly on the edge of that ring, since it is exactly at the radius of 5 inches away from the center, and since it is 0 inches away from the top of the ring. Now, we want this to be 12 inches, because that is our shape, and this is always going to be connected. And then here I said we want it to be on the inside, right here, touching there. So that is going to be 1.5 inches away from the center, since the radius of this inner ring is 3 inches. And it's going to be right touching here, so 0 inches away from this surface. So we can do that first. From this point to this ring, we want 0 inches. So now that's touching there. And then from this point to this plane, I said we want 1.5 since our radius is, since our diameter is 3. So now we know that this is directly on the edge of that circle, which is what we want. And this is directly on the edge of that circle. And that's going to help us with our sweep. Okay, so that is our path, sketch 3. We are done. Now we need to make the actual shape that we're going to do the sweep with. And you'll see what that means. But we're going to make it on here. So click the top of this plane, click sketch, and it's just going to be, and show constraints because we want to show what is constraining our shape. And this is just going to be a circle, 1/2 inch in diameter. So go to top view so that we can make sure we're doing this right. Click, make sure it's on this line, click on the center, and then click on that. And that's going to lock those in, that it is on the midline and that it is connected to this point. And dimension, 1/2 inch. There we go, just like everything else, most everything else. And move it around, looks good to me, so we are finished. And now we get to do the actual sweep part, which is going to be pretty cool. So come here, sweep, it's this S looking thing. Click that, and then it's going to ask what things we want to sweep. So we want to sweep this sketch and what path we want to sweep it along. So click sweep path and here. And make sure that it is a new solid, or we can add. That just depends on if it's a new part down here or if it is part of one of these. So it would be a feature of part 1. We are just going to make it a new part to keep it simple. And so sweep path, edge of sketch 3, and other edge of sketch 3. So that gives us our shape. Pretty easy. So that takes this circle, brings it up, and then brings it down to our middle funnel ring there. Looks good to me, so I'm good. Eventually, we're going to make a pattern around the entire thing of this shape, but for now, we're going to make other shapes since it's easier without all the distractions. So now we're going to make the rings around the shape to keep the fish out. So come here to front and make a sketch. Um, Here, sketch 3, we want to be able to see that so that we can make a circle along the edge. Um, Go to front view, zoom in, and we're going to make a small circle, which then we're going to revolve. So a revolve function is very similar to the sweep function, except it just sweeps it along a circle. So it's like if you had a star and then you press revolve, it would just make this like circle looking thing that has um, 5 edges to it. So you'll see what I mean. Um, Here's what we're gonna do. Another circle here, and then make sure it's on the edge there um, with this sketch. So that makes sure that it is where we want it to be. Dimensions, 1/2 inch, 0.5, 1/2 inch in diameter. So now that is exactly in the center of this tube from the view we're looking at it. And we want that to be 1¼ inches away from this surface here. It just makes things easier with when we do the pattern. I believe it's 1¼ inches. Yes, 1¼ inches. And that's our sketch circle there. Looks good to me. So we're done. And now is the fun part. We're going to make a ring using that circle with that thickness. So like I said, use the revolve function. So what that's going to have us do is pick the shape we want to revolve and then pick the thing we want to revolve it around. Because we could revolve it horizontally or vertically or whatever direction we want. But so first we have to pick what we want to revolve, which is this sketch, um, sketch 5. Just click it on the left here. And then the revolve axis. This little thing lets us choose a coordinate system. So we're going to choose the center here, and boom, there's our ring. So that's taking our circle and going at 360 degrees around our center. New, we don't want to add, we want new to keep it simple again. And looks good to me. So there's one of our rings. And here's the easy part. We're just gonna add a bunch more. So that's a rectangular pattern. So click this, click linear pattern, sorry, not rectangular pattern. Entities to pattern part 4, that is correct. Direction, we want to go in the direction of our plane. Oh, so click direction and then click here, and that brings it up that direction. We want it to be 1.25 inches like our other one. There we go. And how many do we want? We want 9 because that brings us up to the top. Just like that. So boom. Now you're starting to see the shape of our fish trap. Actually, you know what? We will do this slightly later so that we can see our first ring. Okay. So now that you've seen how to do that, actually, yeah, I will do that later, but I'll do it quickly. So before we get distracted with all those rings, let's make another ring here while it's easy. Um, so very same concept, just sketch onto the front. Nope, sketch plane, front. We want a circle. This does not have to be perfect, just right about here. We're going to make a ring. Make sure that it is tangent on the edge there, which shows by that little circle line. And dimensions here, 0.5. There we go. So since it is along the edge and since it is 0.5, it's exactly where we want it to be. Doesn't really matter how far along here. We want it a little farther up. We don't want it straight in the middle or straight down here, because it gets narrower in the center. See that? These are less far apart than they are out here. So we want the fish to not be able to swim through. Sketch looks good, so we click check. Do our revolve function again. Choose the sketch we just made on the left here. Um, Revolve axis. We're going to choose the center. Let's click this there. And there's our ring around the top. Uh, New, don't add a solid. Check. Good. So there's our ring there. And here's our ring here. We're not gonna make any more of these just because we don't really need to. If we wanted to, we could make one down here, but I think it's fine for now. But we do need to do what I just showed and make this linear pattern, direction, um, upwards. No, it's not. Plane 1, so direction. Or we could just do the top plane. It'll do the same thing because it's the same direction. So direction, distance 1.25, instance 9 of them. And that brings us to the top of our trap. So they're good. Now we are going to make these upward and inward tubes the whole way around. So basically the same concept. Instead of a linear pattern, we're going to do a circular pattern. So click here, circular pattern, similar to a revolve. Entities to pattern. Click this guy, part 3. Axis of pattern, again, we need to choose the middle. So make sure, pick there. As long as it's somewhere in the middle, it'll do the same thing. This gives us 4. We want 20, actually, because that'll fill it out well. As you can see there. Now it's really taking shape. Looks good to me. Goes the full way around, equal spacing. It's a new part we're not adding, and good. So boom, just like that, we've basically got our fish trap. Now, this part is not super necessary, but just for ease of 3D printing and for better shape, we're going to take off all these little points at the top, which is really easy. It's just a removing extrude instead of an adding extrude. So we're going to make a shape that then takes away parts. So I'm going to shorten this guy down a little bit. He's a little too big, actually. There we go. Okay. So we're going to make a new sketch on the front and go to front view. Sketch front looks good. And we're going to make a rectangle, corner rectangle. It's going to be, doesn't have to be, just make sure it's over there. We can change the dimensions, which we're going to do now. So we want this to be 12 inches away because that's how tall our ring is. I worked it out that way. And that is covering all of these, so it looks good to me. Check. Now we're going to extrude. This is the interesting part. So extrude here, click our shape, and click remove, because that takes away the parts. So remove faces and sketch regions to extrude. And then merge scope. That decides all of the things that we are going to remove. So just highlight everything because this extrude is going to take everything away. And then we want symmetric so that it goes to both sides. And then we'll say 6 inches because our radius is 5 inches. So just to make sure. Oh, nope, we need 11 inches so that it is over the entire thing because our radius is 10 inches, or diameter is 10 inches. So did that work? Looks a little weird. I'm not sure if that worked. We're going to press check, merge with all. Oh, yes. As you can see, it's still kind of there, but they're um, ghosted or hollowed out. So click check and boom, our part is flat. So all we did there was make a rectangle and then make it along to take away all of those little points. And this is our shape. The last thing we have left is making the holes in the base after we make the base so that they're connected, and then making the grid shape in the base like that. So first we got to make the base. What we do, we click top, we click sketch. You can do that in a different order, it doesn't matter. You could click sketch then top. Click bottom view so that we're looking in the same orientation but from the bottom. And we want our base to be the same size. So sketch here, dimensions, diameter is 10 inches. Now we extrude, and we're going to extrude that out through the bottom. We are doing sketch 8, correct? That's what we want. Click this to change the direction because we don't want to go into our shape. So that brings it back down. So everything else is above. And we want 0.5 inches. And here's the important part, we're not adding. We're making a new feature, a new part, so that we can work with it and move it. And that looks good to me. Same thickness there. Check. So now we have our part 33. There's a lot of these just because of all the rings and vertical tubes. But, oops. So now that we have that, we're going to make the fasteners, the circles, to um, connect the top from the bottom once we actually print these out. So I am going to make a new sketch on the bottom of this so that I know it goes through both parts. So sketch plane is face of extrude 4. It's loading for some reason. Click it again. And then we're going to hide part 33. Don't worry about that loading symbol. There we go. And we hide that so that we can see this ring here. So go to the bottom view. So even though our sketch starts on the very bottom, so the bottom of the bottom, we're looking at the main body. So we're going to make a circle in this top corner here as one of the holes. So the dimensions are important here. This is going to be 0.25 inches, a quarter of an inch. And here, the center of this to this is going to be 3.35, just because of Pythagorean theorem things. And then again, the center, these are going to be symmetrical. So that's 3.35 as well. And that puts us right in the middle of our corner there. That looks good. So I check that, and then that's just a sketch. So we show part 33 again to show that it's on there. And now we're going to make that actually a hole. So very similar. We click this, click extrude, make sure it's just that and that you're not selecting anything else. Um, so solid, remove, that brings it to that direction. Very good. And then merge with all because we want to go through everything. And then make sure it doesn't go through this tube here. So we only need 1 inch, which is what we have. And it's hard to see, but there's our hole going through there. So looks good to me. Done. There's the hole. You can see it on both sides. And that's nice because that'll be able to connect those with like a bolt or something once we make that. So we've got one, super easy to make the other three. We've done this before. We're going to make circular or rectangular pattern, but circular is easy. So circular pattern, what entities? Now we have to do feature pattern because a whole is not a part, but it is a feature of a part. So feature pattern, extrude 5, click it over here on the left. Axis of pattern, select this so that we can choose the middle. And that makes the other three. 1, 2, 3. Because we want 4 total. And they're not intersecting with any of these. So that looks good to me. Done. We are done with our whole shape. Now we just have to grid out the base. So select this, which is part 33. Click this, which is transform, which lets you move something. Translate by XYZ, and then we're just gonna drag this. So make sure you select this sideways arrow, not an up and down arrow, and then just drag it out. Very easy that way. And good. So now we've moved that out of the way. So now we can work with it without being distracted by this. And also, we're going to need to separate this out anyways, um, so that we can print them separately. Because unless we're printing these smaller, which we may be as a model, but I do not recommend printing these at the same time because they just won't fit if you're making this actual size, like a foot tall. So here's our bottom. We take it, we, um, yeah, froze there for a second. We're gonna make our grid. So sketch on this surface here, and going to make a center point rectangle. So we want this to be in the center. So we come here, find the center, boom, there it is, and make our square dimensions. These dimensions are important. So it's already in the center. We don't have to worry about distances, but size is going to be 0.6 by 0.6. 0.6. Boom. There's our square. Good to me. We're gonna make a hole. So click extrude, click this little square here, and click remove, and then that just makes a hole. Doesn't matter as long as it's through the thing. Doesn't matter how far. Check. So there's our hole, and then you know it's coming. We're gonna make a pattern. Come over here, linear pattern. So we're not making circles, we're making a grid. Entities to pattern, extrude 6, choose it on the left. It's not letting me. Click remove. Now click extrude 6. Why is this not letting me do that? Oh, so it needs to be a feature pattern. So click extrude 6. There we go. Direction. We want both left and up. So click this, right, which will do it sideways for us. Direction, right. and you see it makes one of them there. Centered makes it symmetrical, so we want it to be on both sides. Instant count, we want 6. So that brings it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Um, and then we want second direction as well, because we also want it up and down. Um, yep, we want these 1 inch apart from each other, so that's good. Instance count, oh, we have to choose a direction. So click on direction, and then we used right last time, so we're going to do front this time to give it forward and back. Instant count, we want 6 again. Boom, there's our grid, and we choose centered. So these red ones are showing up because they're off the plane, but that doesn't matter because we just want to cut through our bottom here. And you can see the holes are slightly cut into, but they will still keep their shapes. They will still serve the function that we want them to. And looks good to me. Check. Boom. There's our base. And this is our final shape, which, if you look over here at the pre-made one, looks the same. The last thing is that these are all the same color because they're all the same part. So the way to do that is super easy. First, we're going to hide our data planes here just by clicking these eyeballs. Plane one. So now we can just see our parts. We're going to highlight everything of just this part, not the bottom, because we want to make these separate. And then come to Boolean, and that joins everything together. Union, all of these parts, check. And it might take a second, but now it's really easy because we have part one and part two. So now what we want to do is we want to export this as an STL file, which is a 3D model file that will then allow us to 3D print. So when we 3D print, we can't just take it right from this software into the printer. It's like when you print a piece of paper, you have to put it in the printer preview or you have to change some of the settings. So a 3D printer has the same kind of software. So we're going to take part one, right click, export, fish trap current working part one. We can change that to fish trap main body. Name it whatever you want. Format STL. That's what we want. There's all these different kinds, but choose STL down here. Um, this doesn't matter. Units millimeters. We don't want inches, we want millimeters. So that will keep the same size, but can change our units so that the printer software is the correct sizing, because most printer softwares work in millimeters. But we can size it up and down anyways. This is not super strict. Resolution, fine. And then download, export, and that will download for us. See it up here. Fish trap main body STL. And now we're ready to put it into the printer slicer software, is what it's called. So come to our slicer app. It's called Cura. This is another Prusa slicer. Cura. There's also MakerBot slicer. Um, these are all different kinds for different kinds of printers, but very common one and popular one is Ultimaker Cura. So I will show you this here. And again, this is the software that takes your part and slices it into layers so that the 3D printer can understand the language and knows how to actually make the part. And this is sometimes a little bit slow because it's got a lot of data that it has to work with. But as we bring this up, you can change what printer you have, add printer, manage printers. This really all depends on what kind of 3D printer you're using. But it's going to be a similar process no matter what, maybe some different settings if you have a different slicing software. But this is Ultimaker Cura. I'm just using the Ender 3 as an example. It's a very common printer. So come here, import file from disk. We have downloads, fish trap main body, what we just made um, a minute ago. Open that, and that's going to bring up our file here. So you see it's pretty big because I made it a foot tall, which for 3D printing, that's a lot of time. That would take, I was looking at it yesterday when I printed these out. This with supports would take 5 days, a little over 5 days, so that's a lot. And it would take like six 600 grams, so more than half a kilogram of filament. So if you really wanted to print it that big, you'd have to make sure it fits inside your printer size. But that's doable. It's a little crazy, a little bonkers, but very doable. Um, Bonkers is sometimes fun. So, but what we're gonna do is just size this down to model size. So we take our part here. Um, this is the scale. We can just drag these, make it a bit smaller. Sometimes it's a little funky. Drag it down, you see there, and then move it. So move it over to the middle, and it just boom, places it on the base there. And then we're gonna flip it upside down because that's much better for the supports. Because like I showed you here, there's the funnel on the inside. This is the one that doesn't have the supports removed. This is the one that does have some of the supports removed. Ideally, all of them would be removed, but that's pretty tedious. So I just have this here, and I print it this way so that it doesn't have to put all the supports in the center here, so that it only has supports down here and then around like that. So we flip it upside down, rotate, uh, oh, mirror, mirror from the top and down, click this blue arrow that flips it upside down, and then, yeah, and then we go to our supports. We have our supports are on, our adhesion is on, makes it stick to the bed well, and then we click slice. This might take a while, so I'm gonna cut this part from the video. All right, our slicing is finished. That took about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, because it has to work through all the data. But it doesn't show us the supports yet. We have to come over here and click preview, processing layers, and then boom. So this is going to be pretty slow. It's a lot of data it's working with, but that's why it's lagging a little bit. But you see that the red and all the other colors, besides this light turquoise is the support material, and then all the other colors, mainly red, is the main body of the fish trap. So there you have it. You would just save to disk, download, put it on a USB file or export or do whatever you need to put it to your printer, and you're ready to go. And then you can also do the same thing for the base. You just download it as an STL like I showed earlier. You could print it at the same time if you're printing them small enough, or if you're printing a full size, you print them separately, and then you have your fish trap model. And thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Um, make some cool stuff.